So we're going to do a quick project in Photoshop. It's going to be a YouTube thumbnail. I've gotten a lot of requests from students wanting to learn how to make an effective YouTube thumbnail. And we're going to do that today. We're going to go over some examples of what I think are strong YouTube thumbnails. We're going to open it up in the right size, and we're going to create this colorful, high impact thumbnail today. So YouTube thumbnails are not very big. The original size is 1280 by 720. But when they're displayed in the YouTube feed, they're much smaller than that size. So you got to be able to look at your design at this size and be happy with it. You can read any text that's on there. You can really understand the concept of what the video is about, and it communicates all of that in this very, very tiny thumbnail image. So in this case, this is actually one of my design lessons that I have on my YouTube channel, but you can see how I have the product and I have a nice, clear, high contrast lettering. I can read this very well. We're going to move on and show you some other examples. This is another one by Dansky, which is another great graphic design instructor. And this is one for Puppet Warp, and he has kind of this two-tone division where he kind of shows his whole concept of what's the video about. It's high impact. There's people in it. We always connect with people better than objects, and nice, clear typography. I can read it. There's an icon that tells me it's a Photoshop tutorial, and it's very clear. The next one uses iconography and very simple solid boxes to communicate a nice, clean, clear thumbnail. So this works really well for illustrating some kind of vector line art, in this case, the little video in the background, and then you have the kind of the cyan blue bar that runs across with nice, clear, high contrast white typography. And you noticed all the typography, you don't see a lot of thin weighted typography, you see a lot of bold type, because think of how small this is. This is a very small image, and you got to be able to read it from a distance, because not everybody reads your title. Sometimes they look at the thumbnail first. This is another one of mine. I've kind of used the diagonal line to kind of divide the image up a little bit, so you kind of have this green and then you have a white background, so they really pair well together, and nice clear typography. I'm not trying to put the whole headline on my YouTube thumbnail. You just can't do that. You put a very abbreviated, shorter version of your video title on the cover. And also, if you're using any software, put the software logo on there so people know right away what you're using. And this is for if you're doing client work, if you're doing thumbnail work for a client who might be a YouTube personality or someone who produces a lot of videos. You're going to need to create these images very fast and very quickly, because sometimes they need one every single day. So the example we're going to do in the class, we're going to try to do it in under 20 minutes. We're going to try to do it in under 20 minutes to practice trying to do a thumbnail as quick as possible, but also making a nice high impact one as well. Okay, here's an example of one I did a while back, just kind of showing a product design that I show how to do in the video on YouTube. And I tried to use kind of this fading into black so that the type can really be readable. And to be honest, I can even remove the smaller type on the thumbnail if it's going to be viewed very small. So a lot of people, when they design YouTube thumbnails, they look at it at this size. But when you design, sometimes it's actually kind of nice to zoom out a little bit so you can kind of get that final perspective of what that size is really going to be. So I like to zoom out a lot and get that perspective and get an idea of how small this thumbnail really is going to be shown on the YouTube platform. Here's another example of the diagonal action going on. It's not just kind of a straight down division. It's got this diagonal line that cuts it all the way down. It kind of brings both sides together, and high impact, high contrast type on a white background, and of course kind of a duotone purple image on the top. And here's another one, just making sure if you're using any software, that logo is nice and big so people understand right away what the video and concept is about. I use this background image. It's not overtaking the type. It's just a background image, but it helps communicate what the video is about. So let's create a YouTube thumbnail in under 20 minutes. We're going to create the one you see here. Let's go ahead and open up a new document, and it's going to be that 1280 by 720. And we're going to make it at 300 dpi, although that's not required for YouTube platform. They just require a 72 dpi resolution, but I like to do it in 300. They can downsize it, that's fine, but I like to have a high resolution version if I ever want to adapt it to something else. So we're going to make sure we're in RGB color mode. This is a pure digital project, so we're going to keep it in RGB. So here we are, here's our document. I have a couple of photos I'm going to be working with. You can find that in the resource guide. I got them from pexels.com and unsplash.com, where I find free photos, but you can use whatever you want for this. You can do whatever concept you want for your YouTube thumbnail. So this is the YouTube creator. This is the person who's the face of the YouTube channel we will be designing this for. So I like to put the YouTube creators on the front with a nice big profile shot because it's all about them. It's all about them in front of the camera, and she teaches travel hacks. So this is going to be a travel hack YouTube thumbnail, kind of an introduction video to her travel hacking. So let's go ahead and cut her out. Of course, there's several ways we can cut her out. First of all, I like to cheat a little bit. I can put my layers panel here because we're going to be using our layers panel a lot in this project. I like to go to select and subject. I have a newer version of Photoshop, so I have this handy tool available, and it's going to go ahead and select it for me. I like to do that just to get a general start, and it does an okay job. There's definitely some things I'll need to fine-tune and select out here, and there's lots of different tools we can use. What do I like to usually use first? Sometimes I like to get my magnetic lasso tool, and let's say I need to probably deselect and kind of choose where her hair goes here. So I'm just going to either add or subtract. I'm going to go ahead and subtract and kind of see what kind of it helps me do here. And I might need to go in with the pen tool to make better selections. So let's do that. I have the pen tool, and I am just going to make this a smoother selection. And I love the pen tool when you have lots of little curves like this. It just makes a more natural cutout. Going to complete the shape, right click, make a selection, and I am going to subtract from the selection. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and do that throughout. We already did this in a previous book design cover project, so I'm going to continue to cut this out. She's already cut out really well on the body, so I just need to kind of cut this out, and then we can go back and remove any of the gray there that we see. Just going to smooth out the top of her head because that selection is a little jagged. So just adding to that selection, I'm ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and copy her and paste her into our blank file. So here she is. So let's go ahead and zoom out to 50% so we kind of really see what this thumbnail is going to look like. Let's of course make her smaller. But I want her to be kind of the main highlight of the thumbnail because since she's the YouTube creator here, of course this is all just stock photo made up, but for this case she is the YouTube creator. So we want to kind of have her be out. And I want her hands to be shown crossing because if you do that, it just looks a little strange, like she's floating around. But if you show her crossed arms, she looks like she's more in action. So we're going to choose right about here. You can always make her bigger a little bit later. So there she is. We're going to go ahead and zoom in it again, back in, and we're going to start getting our type laid out first. I like to do my type and then the main focal point, and then I can do all the background stuff a little bit later. So I'm going to go ahead and load in that type. And just loading in our 3 lines. These are on 3 separate lines or 3 separate objects or layers in Photoshop, so I can have max control over where all this is. And let's take a look at the typography here. This is Railway, so we're just using kind of a very typical font that I use quite often. It's nice, big, and thick. So what I also did is I just went to my background layer and just did a cover overlay, just doing a quick little nice high contrast blue. I thought I'll also incorporate another high contrast color to blue, which is yellow. So I thought maybe we can make one of these words yellow to really bring it out. So we're going to make secrets yellow. A nice, bright, vivid yellow, not a whole lot of green, but that's perfect. So you notice how that's really popping out. That's really clean. Travel hack secrets. I totally get it. So let's go ahead and integrate her somehow within the type. We could put travel behind her. So the L kind of gets lost a little bit behind her head. So she looks like she's kind of interacting with the type. She's not just a floating woman out there in the middle of nowhere. The type and her are interacting. I thought, okay, traveling. What do we need to put when we have traveling? So let's kind of get a background going here. And I thought I'd like to divide this a little bit. We could put some duotone images or do some blending modes and put the Eiffel Tower and maybe the Statue of Liberty here. But I'd like to maybe have a couple of different colors going on here or some kind of way to divide this big kind of background up. So I'm just going to draw a little diagonal line, just a little corner. We're just going to pick a nice high contrast color to everything here. Go ahead and slide that behind everything. And we'll see if that is going to be working or not. We could probably adjust the color a little bit. We'll kind of see how all that goes, but let's start integrating some of our travel photos in here as well, and then we can finish off some fine-tuned touches on the typography. So let's do this. Go ahead and bring in the Eiffel Tower. I just have this image here. There's better ones out there that you can get, but this is what we have. Just pasting that in there. Let's make it a little bit small. Let's bring it to the back behind the woman. Kind of see how we can best integrate this. We want to make sure we show most of the tower because it's not really recognizable from the tip. So you kind of have to frame it in a really nice way right on the right shoulder. And this is where we can really kind of experiment with blending modes. So blending modes are going to be right here in your panel, and I love the new version of Photoshop where it gives you a live preview and you don't have to sit there and select each one to find out what it's going to look like. You get the live preview. So that's pretty neat. Let's do luminosity. And I want to go ahead and blend this in so it doesn't have this big background in there. So let's use some layering masks. So I'm going to add a layering mask, which is going to be right down here in your layers panel. So I'm just adding a layering mask, and you can select the main image or you can select your layering mask. So I have the layering mask selected on this layer, and I'm just getting the gradient tool, and I have the default black to white gradient selected, and I am going to go ahead and draw a gradient and fade this out. So with blending modes, if you paint with the color, let's say we paint with the color black. So I just have a black brush. Let's go ahead and get a nice soft round brush. It's not too big. So I'm on my layering mask area. So if I paint with black, it's going to delete. Let's go ahead and do full opacity. It's going to delete anything in your layering mask. So it's a great way to cut certain objects out. If I were to paint with white, I can add what has been deleted back in. So white adds things back into your layering mask and black deletes them.